Ladies and gentlemen, some people will break your spirit, then blame you for being weak. They will hurt you, ignore you, disrespect you, lie to you, make you cry at night, and still expect you to stay loyal to them. And the saddest part is this: many people do stay, not because they're happy, not because they're loved, but because they're afraid to start over, afraid to be alone, afraid that maybe this is the best they'll ever get. Many people stay in places that hurt them because pain becomes familiar, and sometimes familiarity feels safer than the unknown. Even when the relationship is draining them emotionally, even when they cry more than they smile, even when they feel invisible, they stay because leaving means facing fear, loneliness, and uncertainty all at once. A lot of people are not addicted to love. They are addicted to hope. Hope that one day things will change. Hope that the person who keeps hurting them will suddenly become the person they needed from the beginning. And because of that hope, they continue tolerating behavior that slowly destroys their spirit. At first, the hurt seems small, a little disrespect, a little neglect, a few broken promises. But emotional pain grows quietly. It builds over time until the person no longer recognizes how much damage has been done to their confidence, peace, and sense of worth. And the dangerous part is this: when somebody stays too long in emotional pain, they start normalizing it. They begin making excuses for behavior that should never have been accepted. They tell themselves things like, "Nobody's perfect," or "They didn't mean it," while their heart continues breaking in silence. Some people stay because they are afraid of starting over. They built memories, routines, and dreams around someone. The thought of walking away feels like losing a piece of themselves. So instead of leaving, they keep sacrificing their emotional well-being, hoping things will eventually improve. Others stay because they secretly believe they do not deserve better. Past wounds, childhood rejection, abandonment, or low self-esteem can convince a person that painful love is normal. And when someone grows up without healthy emotional examples, they often mistake emotional chaos for deep connection. That's why some people confuse intensity with love. The highs and lows, the constant uncertainty, the emotional roller coaster. It feels powerful, dramatic, passionate. But real love is not supposed to feel like surviving a storm every single day. There are also people who stay because they fear being alone more than they fear being hurt. Silence scares them. Empty spaces scare them. The idea of having nobody to text, nobody to come home to, nobody to hold on to emotionally, that fear becomes stronger than their desire for peace. So they choose familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom. But eventually, something inside starts breaking. The exhaustion becomes impossible to ignore. The sleepless nights, the anxiety, the emotional confusion, all of it begins to weigh heavier than the relationship itself. And deep down, the soul always knows when it is being loved and when it is simply being tolerated while slowly falling apart. Real love and emotional survival can look similar from the outside, but inside the heart, they feel completely different. Real love brings peace, even during disagreements. Emotional survival brings anxiety, even during moments of silence. One builds you up, the other slowly forces you to adapt to pain until you stop recognizing your own emotional state. When love is real, you don't constantly question your worth. You don't spend hours analyzing messages, tone, delays, or changes in behavior. You don't feel like you are walking on emotional eggshells. There is clarity, even in imperfection. There is stability, even in conflict. You feel safe enough to be yourself without fear of losing the connection. But emotional survival is different. It makes you hyper-aware of every detail. A late reply feels like rejection. A short message feels like distance. A change in tone feels like danger. You start reading between lines that may not even exist because your nervous system is no longer calm. It is constantly alert. Walter Rizzo often highlights that love should not be confused with suffering. And this is where many people get trapped. They believe that the intensity of their emotional pain is proof of deep love. But in reality, it is often proof of emotional instability, attachment wounds, and fear of abandonment. In survival mode, a person does not love freely. They attach desperately. They try harder, give more, and tolerate more, hoping that effort will secure affection. They start negotiating their own dignity without realizing it. If I am more patient, they will change. If I am more understanding, they will love me better. But love does not grow through self-abandonment. Real love does not require you to lose yourself to keep someone else. In emotional survival, the relationship becomes the center of your identity. Your mood depends on their attention. Your peace depends on their behavior. Your confidence depends on their validation. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to disappear inside the relationship while trying to hold it together. Real love allows you to breathe. It allows space, individuality, and emotional balance. You can miss someone without feeling desperate. You can disagree without feeling threatened. You can be apart without falling into emotional collapse. But survival-based attachment creates dependency. The fear of losing the person becomes stronger than the desire to be respected. So even when the relationship hurts, the mind convinces the heart that leaving would hurt more, and that is where confusion takes root. Because pain becomes familiar, and familiarity starts to feel like love. But deep down, there is always a quiet awareness, a small voice that notices the difference, a feeling that knows when you are being valued and when you are simply trying to hold on to something that is slowly draining your emotional strength. Self-worth does not collapse in a single moment. It erodes slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, each time a person tolerates what hurts them. It begins with small compromises, ignoring a disrespectful comment, excusing a broken promise, staying silent when something feels wrong, and over time, those small moments accumulate into a deep, internal belief that their feelings don't matter as much as keeping the relationship intact. When someone repeatedly accepts disrespect, the mind starts adapting to it. What once felt unacceptable slowly becomes normal. The emotional boundaries that once protected dignity begin to weaken. And little by little, the person starts lowering their standards without realizing it, just to avoid conflict, rejection, or abandonment. One of the most damaging effects of tolerating disrespect is the internal confusion it creates. A person begins to question their own perception. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not that serious. Maybe I'm too sensitive. This constant self-doubt weakens emotional clarity and slowly replaces confidence with insecurity. Walter Rizzo often emphasizes that love without respect is emotional imbalance. And when respect disappears, the relationship stops being a place of safety and becomes a place of emotional instability. Because every act of disrespect sends a hidden message. Your feelings are not important enough to be protected. Over time, this message sinks into the subconscious. The person begins to believe, on a deep emotional level, that they deserve less. Not because it is true, but because repeated emotional experiences train the mind to accept it as reality. And this is how self-worth starts to fade. Not through one big traumatic event, but through repeated acceptance of small emotional injuries. Each ignored boundary becomes a silent agreement. Each forgiven insult without change becomes a silent permission. And each moment of staying despite pain becomes a quiet abandonment of self-respect. The most painful part is that people often confuse tolerance with love. They believe that staying no matter what proves loyalty. But in reality, unconditional tolerance of disrespect is not love, it is self-neglect, disguised as commitment. A person with strong self-worth does not enjoy conflict, but they understand limits. They know that love should not require constant emotional suffering. They recognize when a relationship consistently damages their peace instead of supporting it. But when self-worth is weakened, even emotional pain starts to feel familiar. The person begins to normalize anxiety, sadness, and confusion as part of love. They stop expecting consistency. They stop expecting respect. And slowly they stop expecting emotional safety altogether. And in that process, something very subtle but very powerful happens. The relationship no longer reflects how much they are loved, it reflects how little they have learned to value themselves. Walking away is not just an action. It is a decision that breaks an emotional identity you built around someone. That is why it feels so difficult. You are not only leaving a person, you are leaving expectations, memories, routines, and the version of yourself that kept trying to make it work. But there comes a moment in life when staying becomes more damaging than leaving. It is not always obvious at first. It starts as exhaustion, emotional fatigue that you can no longer explain. You wake up tired of the same disappointment, the same silence, the same cycle of hope and pain repeating itself in different forms. Walter Rizzo often speaks about dignity as a core element of emotional health. And dignity is not about pride or ego. It is about self-respect. It is about recognizing when a situation is no longer aligned with your emotional well-being. Because love without Respect and peace slowly becomes a form of self-abandonment. The power of walking away begins the moment you realize that love alone is not enough to sustain a relationship that consistently hurts you. Many people stay because they confuse attachment with destiny. They believe that history means obligation, or that time invested means they cannot leave. But time does not justify emotional suffering. There is a deep psychological shift that happens when a person finally chooses themselves. At first, there is fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of regret, fear of the unknown. The mind creates endless scenarios of what life will feel like without that person. But what it does not show is the peace waiting on the other side of emotional chaos. Walking away is not about hatred. It is about clarity. It is the moment you stop negotiating your worth in a place where it is constantly diminished. It is the realization that no amount of effort can fix a dynamic where respect and emotional balance are missing. And here is the truth many people discover too late. Staying in the wrong place costs more than leaving it. It costs your peace, your confidence, your energy, and sometimes even your identity. You begin to lose yourself while trying to hold on to something that is already breaking you internally. But when you finally step away, something unexpected happens. The noise fades, the anxiety reduces, the constant emotional tension begins to loosen its grip, and slowly you start remembering who you were before the relationship started shaping your fears. The hardest part is not the leaving. The hardest part is accepting that you deserve better all along, but stayed because you believe love required sacrifice without limits. And when that belief changes, your entire emotional world shifts with it.